Welcome back to our September edition of Law and Society. This is just such a great, again, I feel so naive that I learn, but this whole opiate, fentanyl world, this universe is so foreign to me.
It's foreign to most people, and that's the way it should be. I wish it was foreign to everybody, but it's not.
The numbers, though, are really staggering when you look at overdose deaths increasing, and again, I said this at the start of this particular show. You have the governor of Ohio going on and saying, "Great news, we're winning the war."
We're not winning it,
and I think that's yeah.
I think he's wrong.
Well, let's talk about. We're going to get to issue 1, which is, I believe, from what I hear, is just we'll get to it. Let's talk about amnesty. You know, you see an overdose, you call it in.
Right. There's a lot of confusion.
What's going on with that? Because there's a lot of people think, well, if I call it in, they're not going to prosecute me.
Right.
Right.
It was designed as a measure so that people would not be afraid to call 911 should they be in a situation where someone overdoses. And that's a good idea, and it's saving lives. Mm-hmm. But there's a great deal of confusion about it because they think that if they call it in, they have blanket immunity for whatever crime it was that they were doing. Mm-hmm. No, it's very limited. And I get calls all the time from people saying, I got charged, but I called it in, and how can they charge me? Well, basically the law says that if you're a qualified individual and you seek or obtain medical assistance for a person who is overdosed, you cannot be charged with a minor drug offense of possession if certain requirements are met. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a mouthful, so let's break it down just a little bit. What's a qualified individual? Well, a qualified individual is somebody who's not on probation or on parole and acts in good faith to seek medical assistance from somebody. So call 911, take them to the hospital, take them to a doctor's office or an urgent care, okay? So that's what makes you a qualified individual. It only applies to minor drug possession offenses, which includes misdemeanor drugs and felony 5s, fifth-degree felonies.
The lowest form,
Yeah, so that would be possession of Percocet, that would be possession of a small amount of heroin, that would be possession of limited other drugs. So not all levels of drugs are covered.
Okay, let me pose this to you. So somebody overdoses at your house. You've got drugs.
Right.
And you call 911 and the medics arrive.
Right.
And they come in.
Yes.
And now at that point, are the police automatically involved?
The police
in that?
usually respond as well.
Okay. Yes. So now it's an emergency situation, right?
And the police show up and you have a little bit of heroin or you have a little bit of Percocet at a low level. If they're felony 5s and you're not on probation, then you meet the requirements. You're a qualified individual. But if you are selling, if you're trafficking, if you show up and you've got a little system there with a little grinder, a little mixer, and a bunch of little bags, that's trafficking. That's selling drugs. That you don't get amnesty for that.
Now, do they need a search warrant if it's an emergency situation like that?
No, police do not need a search warrant in an emergency situation because you called them.
Right.
Once you pick up the phone and dial 911, they're coming through the door legally.
Gotcha. Okay.
So all other crimes are not covered. So if you call and they show up and you've got this either trafficking situation going on, or suppose they arrive and you've got a bunch of stolen cars in your front yard, or a collection of stolen license plates, it's not blanket immunity.
Right. This is a slippery slope, and I'll tell you why, or pose this to you. So you call this in, and let's say you aren't, but now the police know that there's activity going on in that house or that apartment, whatever.
That's part of the reason people don't call.
Exactly, and that's the slippery slope. Is all of a sudden you let somebody die, or do you run that risk?
Most people in those situations I don't think they're usually on heroin, and I don't think their thinking is as rational, and I think they tend to just respond, "Oh my God, my friend's dying."
Yeah, right.
But even if you meet the definition of a qualified individual and it's a minor drug possession, there's still things you have to do afterwards. You're not done.
Okay.
So you have to get an evaluation and pursue a course of recommended treatment.
Okay.
So it's not just, I called it in, I'm okay. You actually have to take the step to deal with your problem, because it's assumed that if you're in possession of heroin, that maybe you could use some.
You're addicted.
Treatment. Yeah, you're addicted. So there's a lot going on there. that people are unaware of. It's saving lives.
So it's not just look the other way.
You have to proactively do something to
Right.
address the fact that you're in possession of a controlled substance.
And that means you need to know that the definition of amnesty is not, they're just going to look the other way and not. Right. No, you're going to be held responsible.
You're going to be held responsible, but ultimately, if you do seek the treatment, then no charges can be brought.
And we have a drug court in this.
We do.
And
both of our Judge Trimmer started it in municipal court years ago. He was one of the first judges that I know of who actively took a very leading role in the fight against opiates. He really did. He was a little bit ahead of the curve, and he has been pounding this drum, and he should be, very loudly for many years.
So are we doing any good?
I don't think so.
Okay, we're not gaining traction.
The fentanyl it's a game changer. It is simply changing the whole landscape.
It's keeping people addicted.
It is it is from a business model standpoint, and I'm speaking about drug dealers.
Right.
It makes their product cheaper to produce, more addictive, and increases demand. If you had that situation with any other product you could sell, you'd be a billionaire if it was legal.
Yeah.
So cut costs, increase demand, and increase demand more rapidly.
Yeah, we all want that product.
We
right?
all want that product, and that's what they're selling.
Look at Apple,
Yeah,
$1 trillion company because of the phones.
Yeah, and the addictive nature of the cell phone. We covered that. We talked about that on a prior show. So
but that addiction is legal.
That addiction is
perfectly legal.
This one isn't.
Well, let's talk about what issue one's going to try to do, which is make a lot of this legal, right?
It is, and that's what scares me. If adopted, it would do a couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, it's going to reduce the sentences of prison sentences up to 25% for people who are incarcerated, except for murder, child molestation, rape, charges like that. So what they want to do is get people out of prison. Our prisons are overcrowded, and they cost money, and the state doesn't have the money to keep people in prison. Right. So they keep coming up with different ideas to reduce the number of people in prison. They'd rather spend the money on schools than prisons, but the reverse is happening. We're spending it on prisons, not schools.
Right.
The second thing it does, and this is the big one, is it's going to make felony possession, turn it into misdemeanors for drugs such as heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, LSD, and fentanyl. And it's going to make it misdemeanors at levels of that drug which are exceptionally high. For example, 25 grams of fentanyl. That's enough to kill 10,000 people.
Are you seriously?
Yeah.
And that would be a misdemeanor.
Be a misdemeanor.
A slap on the wrist.
Multiple balloons of heroin. I've heard numbers between 30 and 40. So basically, that's going to be misdemeanors. Now, it gets better in that your first two arrests for this charge, the first two times you're arrested for possession of fentanyl or heroin, they can't put you in jail. They can only give you probation.
Can you imagine if drug dealers knew that
oh, they're going to know.
They're going to know.
And they're going to come.
And right.
And the idea was if we let people out of prison and save money, what they're going to do then is take the money that they save and they're going to spend it on rehabilitation, which has its advantage. And then they're going to adopt guidelines for what happens if you're on probation and you mess up so that they can't throw you in jail then. So there are two sides to the issue. And the first side is, listen, what we're doing isn't working. Why don't we try something new? That's what the proponents of the bill say. Instead of prison, let's focus on treatment. And there is something to that in the sense that if you're an addict and it's a real addiction and you do get clean and then you're left with a felony record, you've just done all the hard work to get clean and stay sober, but now you can't get a job because you have a felony conviction, and what do you do then?
And touching on that point, you've said many times, and this show is about the things that get you thrown in jail, the things that can ruin your life permanently. We've talked about a lot of the things with sexting, social media, the one mistake that can ruin your life. Well, there are probably those in that fall into that camp with drugs. They did it once, or right. They're not habitual users.
They've got 2 Percocets on them.
Yeah,
and they got them from a buddy. Their back was hurt, or they went to a party.
Yeah, there are those.
They get a felony conviction, and they had a promising future. They lose their job, and now where are they? Well, now they're unemployed, and next thing you know, they may be involved in the drug trade and get addicted to drugs even more permanently.
All right. So that,
there is that component
right.
that exists, which I think that the law is intended to benefit.
But we are throwing a lot of bathwater out here with the baby's going with the bathwater on this one.
It is.
Because if you talk about a constitutional amendment, we're talking about, and you said it before going on the air, your opinion is this will kill people.
This is going to get people killed.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other problem is that it is going to make Ohio a magnet for drug dealers. We're already probably the number 2 state in the country that has a problem with opiates.
Well, let's take
we're going to go to number 1 with a bullet.
Right. Yeah. So with fentanyl on the list, and let's talk about the con side of this. You had the pros. This is the con side, and that is
the con side is with fentanyl on the list.
So
this is mind-boggling to me. That essentially you can walk into the courtroom and you can sit down and you can take a needle in one hand, your fentanyl in the other, put the needle in your arm, shoot up in front of the judge, and the best he can do is say, "Oh, you're convicted of a misdemeanor. Don't do it again." You can come back the next day and do it again, and he still can't throw you in jail.
That's just unbelievable.
So if that's what an addict can do, what can a dealer do?
Yeah.
The dealers are going to get smart. They're going to start having people transport their product in the levels that make it a misdemeanor.
Yeah, they'll get more mules to do it.
They'll get more mules. They'll pay these kids $50, $100 to drive up and down.
Hey, you can't go to jail for this.
You can't go to jail. You cannot go to jail. Don't worry about it. It's a quick 100, and that's only if you get caught.
Yeah, only if you get caught.
And they carry in misdemeanor levels, and misdemeanor levels are going to be enough to sell their product locally.
And by the way, if you get probation, you get in trouble. I'll spiff you a little extra money.
Spiff you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
That's what's going to happen.
Unbelievable. So you're what is okay? So let's get Andrew Stevenson's take here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know there's a problem, despite what the governor is saying. We're not winning.
No.
What do we do? How do we start to combat this then? How do we gain traction here?
Let me answer your question from the other side.
Okay.
All righty. And that's from my client's perspectives.
All right.
What the thing that is appealing about the law, as I said, are those individuals who get caught up and on low ends, who are addicts, who make a mistake, who get addicted, who have a tooth pulled to get hooked on Percocets, then move to heroin because they got addicted to opiates. Convicting those people of felonies, I don't like. What I prefer are diversion programs. There are a lot of counties that have them. Unfortunately, not all do. There's something called treatment in lieu in the law, which is there. If you get treatment, your charge can be dismissed. But, I would like to see that individuals, and I think the courts are trying to do this to work with people who are addicted. I think the judges in this county do a nice job with that. But it's tricky because everyone says, let's go find the real dealers and let's go get them. Mm-hmm. They're not easy to get. And the fact of the matter is that from the economic standpoint, from the cartels, they don't care how much product gets confiscated. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
There was an article in The Economist several years ago where they looked at the cocaine trade. And every time the police make these seizures of 50 kilos, cartel they don't even blink.
That's spoilage.
That's just overflow.
Yeah,
that's like the amount of little Coca-Cola that spills over the top of the cup when you fill it up at McDonald's.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So basically, I think it starts with you got to do what you can to eliminate demand, because the supply side you cannot fight.
Yeah. And that's nothing new about that.
That's nothing new.
That's not new.
But
we got to keep new addictions from happening.
That's where I think eventually the product will
But
go up.
Andrew, have we lost a generation in this? Have we lost?
Possibly.
And
there's still time to save the next one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Are we? Should we be concentrating on the little kids now and doing everything we can?
Talk to your kids.
Yeah.
You hear that 1,000 times, but you can't afford not to.
It's tough. It's tough news. There's no way to sugarcoat or make this any better than it is. It is what it is. The best. It's like thermonuclear war. The best way to do it is to not get started.
Yep.
All right, we are out of time, but man, what a great topic! I look forward to next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
You've been listening to What'd you call me?
Called you Dave. I don't know why. You might want to edit that out.
No, we'll leave that in.
I don't
Law and
know why.
Society. Thank you very much, Andrew Stevenson. By the way, StevensonCriminalDefense.com.
Yep.
Yeah, look him up. If you need him, look him up.
Thank you.
If you don't, look him up anyway. We'll see you next month.